Growing up, I always felt like an afterthought, like I was just there, a background character in someone else's perfect little story. That someone, of course, was Rachel, my younger sister, my mother's delicate miracle, the center of our family's universe. Rachel was born premature, which meant she was fragile. At least, that's how my mother saw her. Every cough, every fever, every scraped knee was treated like a life or death emergency. And me? I was a threat. If I so much as sniffled, I was sent away. If I got the flu, I was exiled to Grandma's for a week. It didn't take long for me to realize that, in our house, Rachel was precious, and I was optional. So I worked harder, straight A's, honor roll. Science fair wins, but no matter what I did, it was never enough. My mother would mumble a distracted, "That's nice, dear," and then rush off to dote on Rachel, who was being celebrated for, I don't know, tying her shoes or something equally basic. It stung, but by the time I was old enough to leave, I had accepted it. Rachel was the beloved daughter. I was the extra. I decided I didn't need them. I built my own life on my own terms. I put myself through college, started working in luxury jewelry authentication, and before I knew it, I had my own business. It took off faster than I expected. Soon, I was making real money, millions, actually. Not that anyone knew. My family still thought I was struggling in some boring office job. I let them believe it. I even sent my parents money every month. They assumed it was scraps from my modest salary. That was fine by me. Let them think I was scraping by while they sang Rachel's praises. It was almost funny, in a twisted way. Then came Rachel's wedding. Of course, I was expected to give her something extravagant because family helps family. But when I got her message, I had to read it twice. She didn't want a gift. She wanted a house, a $2.3 million house, paid in full. She didn't ask if I could help. She just assumed I would. "It's only fair since you don't have kids or a husband," she wrote, as if my life choices meant I was obligated to fund hers. "And I found the perfect one. I'm sure you can get a loan." I laughed. Out loud. Rachel did not appreciate that. The fallout was immediate. My mother called, furious. My father followed up with a lecture. How could I be so selfish? Didn't I understand how much Rachel had struggled? Had she? Really? She deserves a nice home, they insisted. You should do the right thing. I refused. The guilt-tripping intensified. They tried every angle, family, duty, appearances. But I was done. Done playing the role they had assigned me. Done being the invisible sister, the convenient ATM. It was time for a reckoning. At Rachel's engagement party, I showed up in a designer dress that cost more than her car. My mother took one look at me and clicked her tongue. "Irresponsible," she muttered. "When you're barely getting by," I smiled. "Oh, don't worry about me." Then I let it slip. The thriving business, the investments, the properties, the millions. I watched Rachel's fiancé's face change as the truth sunk in. "Wait, I thought you were struggling?" he asked. I tilted my head. "Oh, who told you that?" Rachel turned pale. Then, for the final touch, I pulled out a small velvet box. "Don't worry, Rachel," I said sweetly. "Since you're family, I wanted to give you something special." She opened it. Inside was a plastic ring from a dollar store. She exploded. My parents demanded I apologize. Instead, I raised my glass. "I think it's time I stopped paying for a family that never valued me." And just like that, I walked away. Free at last. Cutting them off should have felt liberating. And in some ways, it did. No more monthly checks, no more guilt trips, no more pretending to be less than I was just to keep the peace. But, of course, peace was never an option. The very next morning, my phone blew up. Rachel. My parents. Even a couple of extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone had something to say. Most messages followed the same script. "Shame on you, Sarah. How could you humiliate your own sister like that?" Did I have any idea what kind of stress I had put Rachel under? Stress? Rachel had demanded a house like she was ordering off a menu. But sure, I was the villain. I ignored them all. Blocked some. Left the rest on red. It was surprisingly easy. What wasn't easy? Rachel's next move. See, I expected her to cry, to scream, to throw a tantrum. That was her usual play. But she went bigger. She turned herself into a victim, a poor, heartbroken sister, betrayed by the one person she thought she could count on. She posted a long, emotional rant on Facebook about greedy, selfish family members who forget where they came from. She never mentioned me by name, but she didn't have to. The comments filled in the blanks. People ate it up. Her friends, my parents' friends, distant cousins. I was getting dragged by people I hadn't spoken to since childhood. Some messaged me directly to lecture me. Others just left snide comments on my rarely used social media. I saw one that read, "Some people get rich and forget their own blood." Disgusting. It was laughable. These people had never cared about me before. But now I was worth their time because I wasn't giving Rachel what she wanted. I could have ignored it, moved on, let them talk. But I wasn't feeling generous. So I answered. One single post. Since Rachel was so fond of sharing online, I decided to do the same. I posted a simple, factual breakdown. I had been financially supporting our parents for years. Rachel, despite being the golden child, had contributed nothing. I wasn't struggling, and I never had been. I had let them believe that because it was easier than dealing with their entitlement. Rachel didn't ask me for help. She demanded that I buy her a $2, $3 million house outright, because she thought it was only fair. When I refused, she played the victim. No anger, no insults, just the truth. Then, for good measure, I attached a screenshot of Rachel's text, the one where she casually suggested I get a loan for her house. And I logged off. The fallout was glorious. It took about an hour before the comments shifted. Suddenly, people weren't so quick to defend Rachel. Some called her out directly. Others backpedaled, saying they didn't know the full story. A few bold ones even demanded an explanation. Rachel? Silent. My parents? Also silent. Then, my favorite part, Rachel's fiancé messaged me, not to yell, not to guilt trip, to ask for details. He wanted to know exactly how much money I had sent our parents over the years. He wanted to know if Rachel had really expected me to buy a house for her. He wanted to know if she had lied about anything else. And that's when I knew Rachel's perfect little world, it was starting to crack. Good. I had spent my whole life being overlooked, undervalued, and taken for granted. Not anymore. The thing about Rachel, she doesn't take losing well. I knew she'd come up with something. The silence was just the calm before the storm. And sure enough, 3 days later, she hit back. A long, dramatic post. A true masterpiece of manipulation. I can't believe the lies being spread about me. I never asked for a house. I just wanted a little help from my big sister, someone I thought loved me. It's heartbreaking when people you trust try to turn others against you. I would never ask for something I didn't deserve. The audacity. The comments were split. Some people rushed to defend her. Others, the ones who had seen my receipts, weren't so convinced. A few even asked why she hadn't denied the screenshots. She ignored those. Then came the next phase of her plan, damage control. She reached out. Personally, attempted to. First, a message. Hey, I think we should talk. Ignored. Then another. I just want to clear the air. I never meant to upset you. Ignored. Then a phone call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice came through, sickly sweet. Hey, Sarah, I just feel like this has all gotten out of hand. I don't want us to fight. Can we please just meet up? No drama. Just sisters. No drama? That was rich. Still, I was curious. I wanted to see what angle she was playing. So I agreed. We met at a cafe, neutral territory. She showed up in full performance mode, soft voice, big doe eyes, the picture of innocence. I don't understand why you're so mad, she started. Stirring her coffee like this was just another Tuesday. I never meant for any of this to happen. I leaned back. You never meant to demand a house from me? Or you never meant to get caught? She winced. That was just a misunderstanding. You took it the wrong way, I laughed. Rachel, you literally told me to get a loan. She sighed, playing the wounded victim. Fine. Maybe I asked for too much. But I was just excited, okay? And you have so much, Sarah. You don't even need it all. There it was, the core of Rachel's belief system. She genuinely thought she was entitled to my success. That my hard work, my sacrifices, my business, it should all benefit her, simply because we shared DNA. I let that sink in for a moment before I spoke. You know what's funny? I said, tilting my head. I used to think if I worked hard enough, I'd finally earn a place in this family. That maybe one day I'd be enough for mom and dad. But you've always been enough. Even when you gave them nothing. Her expression flickered just for a second. A flash of something that almost looked like shame. But Rachel doesn't do self-reflection. She straightened, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Look, I'm just trying to fix things. We don't have to keep fighting. I smiled. We're not fighting. She blinked. We're not? No. Fighting implies both people have something to lose. Her lips parted slightly, as if it had just hit her this wasn't a negotiation. There was nothing left for her to take from me. I stood, dropping a few bills on the table. I'm done, Rachel, I said, grabbing my purse. Enjoy the wedding. And I walked out. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking back. Rachel didn't take I'm done seriously. At first, she probably thought I was bluffing. That I'd cool off, come crawling back, maybe even apologize for making her look bad. That was how it always worked in our family. But when weeks passed with radio silence, when I didn't reach out, didn't comment on her wedding planning, didn't offer another dime, she panicked. Suddenly, I was getting messages from mutual acquaintances. Hey, Sarah, are you coming to Rachel's wedding? She's really upset, you know. Maybe you guys should talk. Family is forever. Blah, blah, blah. Just a casual countdown to the big day. Update, complete with a list of vendors she was working with, caterers, florists, venue coordinators. And then, right at the bottom, Sarah's Luxe Designs, custom wedding jewelry. I stared at the screen. I don't know what was funnier, the fact that Rachel never placed an order with me, or the fact that she just assumed I'd cave and provide it anyway. Oh, she was in for a surprise. Because not only had I not designed anything for her, but I also happened to know the owner of the venue she booked. High-end places? They don't like last-minute chaos. And they really don't like fraud. So I made a call. Oh, the manager said after I explained the situation. She hasn't paid the deposit yet. We were expecting it this week. I smiled. Interesting. Rachel's entire wedding was built on assumptions. She assumed I'd bankroll her, assumed I'd provide custom jewelry, assumed nothing would ever catch up to her. Time for reality to hit. I told the venue manager everything, the lies, the entitlement, the fact that she was publicly listing my business when I hadn't agreed to anything. Sounds like a problem, client, she said, unimpressed. I'll flag her account. If the deposit doesn't come through in full by Friday, we're canceling her reservation. I almost felt bad. Almost. Friday came. Rachel didn't pay. And just like that, her dream wedding venue was gone. I didn't hear about it directly. No, Rachel wouldn't dare speak to me after that. But I did hear about the meltdown. Apparently, she screamed at the manager, demanded they make an exception. Played the victim card so hard it could have won an Oscar. Didn't work. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and now she had no venue. Poetic justice. I half expected her to reach out, to finally drop the act and ask me for help instead of demanding it. But Rachel? She doubled down. She posted a tearful video, claiming certain people had sabotaged her wedding out of jealousy. She implied I was the villain without naming names, but it didn't matter. The people who had followed this saga knew exactly who she meant. It backfired. Comments flooded in. People weren't buying it this time. Some straight up called her out. Others asked why she kept involving social media in her family drama. A few even said, maybe Sarah was right to walk away. That one? That was my favorite. Rachel had spent her whole life being the golden child, the favorite, the one everyone rushed to defend. But now, the cracks were showing, and I wasn't lifting a single finger to help. Rachel was unraveling. Her wedding was 3 weeks away, and she had no venue, no backup plan, and no way to spin it in her favor. The Facebook pity party didn't work. People were starting to see through her. And that was new for her. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd finally back down, accept reality. Let it go. Nope, Rachel doesn't do accountability. She does revenge. And this time, she came for my business. It started with fake reviews. 1-star ratings flooded in overnight. Random accounts claiming I was unprofessional, that my jewelry was cheap knockoffs. Someone even wrote, "She scammed my grandmother out of her wedding ring," which was funny considering I didn't even do resale. It was obvious what was happening. But Rachel underestimated me. I had built my business from the ground up. I had connections. And I wasn't about to let some temper tantrum mess with my reputation. So I made a few calls. First, to the review platforms reported everything. Most got taken down within 24 hours. Then, to an actual cybersecurity expert. In less than a day, he traced several of the fake accounts back to the same IP address, Rachel's. That was all I needed. I sent her a single text. You might want to stop before this becomes a legal issue." 10 minutes later, my phone rang. "Rachel." I let it go to voicemail. Then came the text messages. "Rachel, I don't know what you're talking about. Rachel, you're being ridiculous. Rachel, why are you doing this to me?" I was doing this to her? Classic. I didn't respond. I let her stew. Then, 2 days later, I got an email from her fiancé. It was short. To the point. "Hey, Sarah, I think we need to talk." Huh. Now that was interesting. I agreed to meet neutral ground, just like last time. But this time? It wasn't Rachel waiting for me. It was him. Alone. He looked exhausted. "Thanks for coming," he said, rubbing his temples. "I'll keep this short." "Did Rachel actually ask you to buy her a house?" I pulled up the screenshots. Slid my phone across the table. He read them. Slowly. Then he exhaled, sat back, and muttered, "Jesus Christ." I sipped my coffee. "Problem?" He let out a humorless laugh. "She told me you offered." I tilted my head. "And you believed that?" He ran a hand down his face. "I wanted to. But then the wedding venue thing happened. And the social media drama. And now this?" He gestured vaguely, meaning the business sabotage. I said nothing. Just let him sit in it. Finally, he looked up. "Be honest with me. Do you think she actually loves me?" Ooh. I could have sugarcoated it. Could have softened the blow. But why? He deserved the truth. So I shrugged. "I think she loves what you can give her." He nodded. Like he already knew. Like he just needed to hear someone else say it. Then he thanked me, paid for my coffee, and left. 2 days later, Rachel's wedding was officially canceled. Not postponed. Not rescheduled. Canceled. Her fiancé dumped her, called off the whole thing. And when I checked Facebook that night, her relationship status was gone. Vanished. Like it had never even happened. The golden child had finally lost. And I had never felt lighter. Rachel's downfall wasn't loud. No dramatic public meltdown. No last-ditch attempt to win him back. No raging at me in my DMs. She just disappeared. For the first time in her life, she had no audience. No fiancé, no wedding. No grand excuse for why her life was crumbling. And without someone to play the victim to, what was left? Silence. Our parents tried to do damage control, my mother called, acting like nothing had happened. "Rachel's been having a tough time," she said, her voice dripping with forced concern. "You should reach out." I almost laughed. "Reach out? After everything?" I let her talk, waiting for the real reason behind the call. It came soon enough. She had to move back home, A pause. Then, carefully, things are difficult financially. There it was. Rachel was broke. And now, suddenly, family mattered again. I let that sink in for a second before I answered. "That's rough. Hope it works out for her." Silence. Then my mother sighed, clearly annoyed. "Sarah, don't be like this. She's your sister." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "And she needs help." "So did I." That shut her up. I didn't wait for a response. Just said, "Gotta go," and hung up. For the first time in my life, I wasn't tangled in their guilt. I wasn't bending over backward to earn love that was never freely given. And it felt amazing. I never spoke to Rachel again. Not directly. But I did hear about her. Through whispers. Through distant relatives who still kept tabs. She tried to fake it for a while. Posted throwback pictures, pretending she was just choosing to focus on herself. But people weren't buying it. The fiancé was long gone. The wedding canceled. And without my money, she had nothing. Eventually, the post stopped. And me? I kept building my life, my business, my peace. One day, years later, I was at a gala, a high-end charity event, packed with the kind of people Rachel used to dream about being around. I was in my element wearing one of my own designs, sipping champagne, enjoying the luxury I had earned. Then I saw her, not at the event, outside. Rachel. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I spotted her across the street. She looked tired, older. The glow of entitlement? Gone. She was waiting tables at a small restaurant, wearing a uniform, her hair tied back in a tight ponytail. For a moment, I just watched. Not out of pity, not out of spite, just curiosity. She didn't see me. And I didn't go over, because that wasn't my life anymore. I turned back to the party, took a sip of my champagne, and let the past stay exactly where it belonged, behind me. Story 2, I'm Rachel Harris, and this year marks my 33rd birthday. I live with my 7-year-old kid, Peter, and my husband, Adam, who is 3 years my senior. 3 people make up our family. My spouse and I are attending a friend's wedding today. I just know them by face, and even though I call them friends, they're more like Adam's pals. I'm astounded by how opulent the wedding at the upscale hotel is. I moved aside to use the toilet as Adam met folks he recognized. I was returning to the ceremony on foot. "Oh, look at that defective person," a harsh voice said. "For what reason are they present at all?" What? I thought. Who are they referring to? I had the impression that everyone around me were intentionally uttering hurtful things loud enough for me to hear. It wasn't only rumors. It was obviously insulting. However, nobody addressed me personally. I left because I didn't want to put up with such impolite conduct. Someone shouted, "Hey, ugly, can't you hear me?" All of a sudden. I chose to ignore it and continued to walk. I wasn't going to let them bother me, and my name isn't ugly. Before I knew it, though, I heard brisk footfall behind me. It stung when someone took a firm hold of my arm. "Hold on a second. I am speaking to you," a lady said. I drew my arm away and gave her a glance. She acted all theatrical as she staggered backward. Another woman gave me a shady look as she hurried over to assist her. "Are you all right, Lauren? Why do you act so harshly?" She glared at me as she asked, "What's happening? Who are you?" "Confused?" I asked. She retaliated. "Who am I? I'm sure you don't remember me. How impolite." She raised her eyebrows in response to my question, startled. "What are you discussing? With only a high school degree, do you really believe you have the right to behave in this way?" "In case you have forgotten, I'll remind you, Lauren, I'm your sister. Do you recognize that name? And our mama is this. Is it true that you have forgotten your own mother?" After giving it some thinking, I gave a little nod. I didn't want to waste time having a meaningful conversation with someone who could have had that name in the past. They were much more irate after my response. 3 males rushed over at that very time. "What's happening?" From over there, we could hear the yelling. "Lauren, are you not yet prepared? You're still dressed normally. For the wedding, you must change." She referred to one of them as Dad. "This person!" Lauren shouted, pointing at me. This dubious individual entered our wedding covertly. "Now, get her out of here." The 3 men had somewhat different reactions. The person she referred to as Dad gave me a wide-eyed, then obviously displeased expression. Noah, the second man, froze in horror, his face becoming white. "Why is Rachel present on this joyous day?" With a shaky voice, Noah inquired. "She must have accidentally slipped in. It's intolerable." "Call security, please. Hold on. Pay attention to what you say," Noah said hastily, his face still white. "This individual is." However, the guy known as Dad concurred with Lauren. Noah attempted to step in. I whispered to myself, "You're genuinely ignorant, however, nobody listened to me." Adam showed up at that moment. "Rachel, you're there." "I have been trying to find you." Everybody looked at him. I apologized with a little grin. On the walk back, I came into a few odd folks. Adam and I took a step closer. He immediately assesses and comprehends the problem. When Lauren noticed me standing behind Adam, gazing at me angrily, her expression changed. Her parents continued to appear perplexed and unsure of what was going on. The first to speak was a flustered Noah. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harris. Something improper was mentioned by my wife. I also sincerely apologize to your wife." Lauren, please, you should also apologize. Noah spoke those words. Why should I say I'm sorry? Lauren retaliated by pointing at me once again. It's her responsibility to apologize. This rude individual interrupted our wonderful day. She's a shame to our family, and I'm not sure how she got here. We ought to have severed our relationship with her long ago and never seen her again. Hold on, family? Noah had a startled expression, looking from Lauren to me. At that moment, the three individuals known as Mom and Dad intervened. We're terribly sorry, Noah. The oldest of our daughters is challenging. Even discussing her is unpleasant. All this time, we've been able to keep it a secret. She was evicted from the residence 10 years ago. How did she even learn that Lauren was getting married? What is it she desires? By arriving here without permission, is she not attempting to spoil the wedding? Mom went on. She's really not that smart, Noah. She merely completed high school and was unable to enroll in college. She was merely a burden, doing part-time jobs and wasting time at home. Like a parasite she was. She ought to be grateful for our help throughout her time in high school. So why, despite the fact that they mistreated me, did she sneak into the weddings? I didn't care about their remarks because I had severed my relationship with them a long time ago. For as long as I could remember, my parents had disregarded me and always given preference to my younger sister, who was 7 years younger than me, even though these people were officially my family, at least on paper. Our house doubled as a clinic, and my father's family had been practicing medicine for many generations. There, my mother provided foreigners with nursing care. Although our family may have appeared to have everything we needed, it was actually a poisonous household. When I was younger, I recall making a lot of effort to get my parents' affection, but I soon gave up since I couldn't understand why they were favoring my sister. I wasn't viewed as attractive, but she was. Fortunately, while this may sound odd, I was intelligent and excelled in school, so I concentrated on my academics with the goal of leaving home as soon as possible. At the time, I thought I was only acting like the family's flawed elder sister. I will not permit you to attend college. There is no way you could get in since you are a flaw by nature. As soon as high school graduation arrives, begin working, gain independence, and make a financial contribution to the household. You ought to be thankful that we ever brought up someone as ugly as you. For that, you owe us. We'll take Lauren's college costs into account. However, you don't have a dime. Even if you acquire a job, you will serve us for the rest of your life. There won't be any significant events. My parents told me this when I was a senior in high school. In fact, I taped that chat as well as several others. They behaved impulsively or verbally assaulted me, and those recordings are still with me now. Following in our parents' footsteps, my sister Lauren likewise mistreated me. She would frequently make fun of me in an attempt to outdo me. In the future, I plan to become a doctor and replace my father. Since my older sister is unable to work hard, I will work hard enough for us both. Oh, that's fantastic, indeed. Do your best and learn lessons from her blunders. Lauren, do not be concerned. I'll be there for you no matter what. Not like your sister. Our pride lies in you. These kinds of talks would take place just in front of me, like I didn't exist. It was like seeing a poorly executed play. I spent around 4 years working various part-time jobs after high school. They referred to me as a burden, yet I continued to remain at home. They wanted to utilize me when it was convenient for them, so they wouldn't let me go. In spite of my family's constant warnings that we wouldn't forgive you if you did this or that, I secretly rented an apartment. After I turned 16, I came to the realization that I no longer need their consent. There were difficulties, of course, such as the requirement for a guarantee for some items, but I managed to make it work. In order for them to not demand a lot of money from me, I also purposefully claimed lower revenue from my part-time work. I gradually increased my funds and began investing. I was expelled from the house after Lauren said she couldn't focus with me there when she was studying for her high school entrance tests. My parents certainly assumed I would return, but for me, leaving was the ideal opportunity to be self-sufficient at last. They must have been taken aback when the daughter they believed to be incompetent, never came back, but they quickly stopped caring. Lauren was plenty for my parents. It's been 10 years since then. I heard Lauren and a man named Noah getting into a furious quarrel. They got married today. They are now married. I had already lost interest in this family, so even though my sister's name was on the invitation, I didn't give it much thought at the time. Why are you siding with her? I had been expressing suspicion about her, only for being present. Ruins the atmosphere. Lauren demanded that she be sent out. No, Noah said. I told you more than once. These are the folks I invited. Have you and I even looked at the invitations? Do you recall their official visitors? Therefore, you ought to express regret for your previous remarks. It was unsettling to hear this dispute so soon before their wedding. Suddenly, my father replied, Wait, isn't he the son of the head of Harris General Hospital? With a startled expression. My mom was just as shocked. The renowned Harris General Hospital. He is the head physician's son. In the midst of their gazes, Lauren added, startled. Adam smiled as he introduced himself. It's good to meet you. This is Rachel, my wife, and my name is Adam Harris. Adam's parents are renowned physicians with years of experience running a hospital. Adam is also receiving training to become like them. My folks were astounded to hear this. Then Noah raised his voice. It's not real. However, to consider that my wife's sister is Dr. Harris, his wife. How coincidental. That implies that we are now linked. He couldn't conceal his astonishment. Noah expressed regret. I apologize, Dr. Harris, if my kid has previously caused any problem. Prior to his saying anything else, I interrupted him. Noah Schnapp, my sister's spouse, is a physician who practices at a university hospital. My son wasn't feeling well, so I recently went him to visit him. But that's all. Adam appears to be highly respected by Noah, and he has numerous medical contacts. How are we feeling now? Noah then inquired. My diagnosis is that he has to begin therapy immediately. I recommend that you bring him to my hospital so that he may be tested and admitted. Noah's offer was generous, but I said no. In fact, we've made the decision to consult with another physician for a second opinion. It's crucial to be certain. Noah seems taken aback by my answer. He seemed to want to treat my son differently, but I didn't like the thought of my child being viewed as just another way to make money. I smiled and graciously turned down his offer, but then the crowd erupted in a derisive chuckle. Why are you behaving that way? Are you marrying a doctor to make up for not having completed high school? Do you believe that getting married to a large hospital's heir improves you? You haven't changed. There has been no change in your schooling. You also think too simplistically. In fact, you are a parent. What a poor child. With you as his mom, Lauren gave a smirk. Lauren, hello. Stop, please. We are related. Why do you say these things over and over again? Lauren scowled at Noah when he attempted to soothe her, remaining steadfast in her beliefs. Adam then said something. Are these individuals indeed members of your family, Rachel? He questioned doubtfully. No, I said. They are no longer considered family. When a true family abruptly chastises you without cause or won't feed you since you spilled a small amount of food. They would laugh and compare the shabby clothing they discovered in a garbage to the expensive ones. They gave my sister, but they wouldn't give me any of that. They wouldn't destroy my textbooks by soaking them in water or discard my school supplies, claiming I'm too dim to need them. I went on to say that a true family wouldn't put you in a hot shed in the summer or strip you naked in the winter for not lending your sister a book. They wouldn't outright tell you that you're expected to labor for them for the rest of your life or sell your possessions behind your back. The unjust treatment we received at the clinic and the suspicion of mistreatment are noticed by the people in town. It should come as no surprise that no one now brings their children to their clinic. The fact that no one reported it when we were younger is astounding. They aren't even aware that they are to blame for their company's current failure. I quietly disclosed the harsh aspects of my background. Noah had a startled expression. When my parents learned that I was aware of the clinic's financial difficulties after I had gone, they were similarly astounded. During their investigation, my in-laws learned of this information and became quite sympathetic to my situation. Adam shared my sentiments and had investigated my parents' clinic, perhaps in an attempt to get even. Lauren cut in, yelling, "Stop! Quit lying! None of that was done by us. Noah, you are to blame for your failure. Don't trust her." However, it was too late. Noah regarded her with contempt. Had she simply walked away and ignored me back then, I reasoned, none of this would have occurred. Then Noah raised his voice. Actually, You are the one lying. What am I lying about? Lauren said that she couldn't believe Mrs. Harris had just completed high school. She is a successful businesswoman with a college degree who serves as the CEO of a firm that supplies hospitals, including ours, with meals. CEO, Noah explained. My sister looked at me as if she couldn't believe it, and she gasped in surprise. My parents appeared equally taken aback. Quit lying. She just received her high school diploma. Are you implying that she attended college without telling us? My mom made the accusation. Calmly, I said, yes, I did attend college. I didn't need to notify strangers who weren't members of my family because I was already an adult. What do you say? How can you talk like that to your parents? My father yelled, we didn't give you permission to go to college. Why would I require your consent? They were unable to conceal their rage when I gently responded. I worked a variety of jobs after high school and accumulated a respectable sum of money. I still had a lot I wanted to learn and accomplish, so I utilized that money to pay for education. I gained independence from living alone and shown my ability to accomplish anything. I launched my own company while I was a college student. I also met my hubby at that time. It makes me feel quite emotional when I think back on it. My sister, meanwhile, muttered to herself while her face became white. It's unbelievable. She has always struck me as the worthless sibling who is incapable of taking care of herself, because after being expelled, she would be nothing. But after graduating from college, she married the head of a large hospital and rose to the position of CEO. Why? I believed that I would be the one to succeed. Why does she have greater success than I do? Why does she appear content? Yes, why? I answered. Perhaps it's because I never gave up and continued to put in a lot of effort in spite of being treated unfairly. Perhaps good fortune also played a role. I gave my sister a hard look before revealing something startling. I've heard you left middle school, by the way. Is that accurate? Everyone, including Noah and my parents, was in full shock at this announcement. What? What are you discussing? Who left middle school early? My sister retaliated. I heard from a distant cousin, someone who has always been nice to us, but I appreciated her effort to deny it. I went on to say that you believed you could get into a prestigious institution without doing any studies when I left home. You failed as predicted since you were ill-prepared for the test and wrote virtually nothing. Following that, you began misbehaving at home and withdrawn for a while. It wasn't until our parents suggested Noah as a potential mate for you that you returned to society. As I talked, Noah's expression darkened, and my sister and dad went white. My father's side relative, who is renowned for being adept at obtaining information, provided the information. He took care of me and even served as my guarantor, even though we didn't see each other very much when I was a kid. You're telling lies. What are you discussing? Despite my sister's shaky protests, I went on. Indeed, it is equally untrue to say that you are employed in medical administration, isn't it? In actuality, you lack the necessary skills and are only performing menial duties without taking on any significant responsibility. At least there is some adherence to professional ethics. Quit! You're telling lies. It's all a lie, she said. Perhaps, I said coolly. It was only a rumor that I heard. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. My sister immediately turned to look at Noah's face at that point. He was uncertain, perplexed, and obviously dissatisfied. Lauren, you informed us that you were assisting with your family's hospital, had credentials, and had graduated from a prominent women's institution. Was it all a lie? It is fraud to fabricate your educational history. Are you lying to me? Noah asked her outright. Don't simply trust her, Noah. My husband is you. I'm trustworthy, she begged. Next, mention even one professor from the university you say you attended. Flustered, he confronted her. My sister found it difficult to answer. That isn't significant at the moment. Really? Let's make a call to a professor in the department you mentioned attending. They are a family friend as well. Noah, too. Noah made a proposal, all set to discover the truth. Noah picked up his phone casually as he spoke. Stop, please. Nathan, don't do that. She begged in a panic. Do you believe me? That's sufficient. Abruptly, Lauren grabbed Noah's phone out of his grasp and slammed it to the ground. Checking is not necessary, just trust me. Anger fueled, she yelled. She repeatedly destroyed the phone by stomping on it with her high heels. She looked like a monster, her face contorted in anger. Startling. Despite Noah's and everyone else's attempts to soothe her, she remained irate. Other visitors and employees noticed the event and crowded around in worry. A spontaneous outburst caused chaos in the arena. I felt like I was watching from a distance, even though I was actually there. I had lost any sense of belonging to my parents and sister. My spouse and son were the only members of my family left. Should we return home? Here, I believe we've fulfilled our obligation. I told Adam. He questioned, seeming a bit taken aback. Rachel, are we heading out already? Calmly, I grinned. It's all right. Come on. Oh, and let's grab some cake from this hotel's cake store. I've heard that one is really well liked at the moment. Adam nodded and grinned. It seems like a smart concept. On the way home, let's pick up the cake. We laughed lightly as we departed the arena. I then learned that Noah was sued for overcharging patients and providing incorrect diagnosis. After that, my ex-parents attempted to contact me for assistance since they were having severe financial difficulties. They arrived at the hospital where Adam works, wanting to meet us, but they had no idea how to get in touch with me. She is the hospital's daughter-in-law. She is our daughter. Let's go see her now. Our issue can be resolved by getting in touch with the hospital director's son. We need our assistance since we're in serious difficulties. She naturally wants to support us because we reared her. They created a commotion during the reception by making loud declarations. However, neither Adam nor I answered. My in-laws were looking at me sternly. What business do you have with our daughter? They inquired. My parents froze and hurried out of the hospital, obviously uneasy. After that, they made many attempts to get in touch, but they never gave their own issues any attention. Their hospital eventually had to shut. I didn't feel particularly affected when I learned that my parents' hospital was closing. Rather, I was relieved that they were at last taking responsibility for their acts. For me, it was one of the most revitalizing experiences. I found out later that Noah and Lauren were no longer together. Their marriage had only lasted a few months, which astonished me. Their relationship must have suffered greatly as a result of Noah's involvement in the litigation and his termination from the hospital. Lauren kept making poor choices, but she always seemed driven to surpass me and achieve more happiness. Thinking that having an affair with an older, married doctor would help her advance in her career was her first mistake. However, it became a major issue when the doctor's wife claimed compensation once the affair was found. Lauren was so desperate that she appealed to our parents for support, but they rejected her and said she was a disgrace to the family. She had suffered since failing her high school entrance tests and had been alone at home for a while. I'm not sure what happened to her after that. She later worked in dubious jobs and had several challenges that harmed her health and ultimately caused her to become homeless. I became very disinterested in her after hearing these tales. My ex-parents, who are getting close to retirement, are having difficulty finding work as nurses or doctors. Due to their poor reputation, which most likely results from the way they have handled me and others in the past, no hospital will hire them. Now they are only memories of my past, and I don't give them any thought. Regarding my kid, I'm pleased to report that, following examination at a different medical institution, he no longer requires hospitalization and, with the correct medicine, his condition has much improved. I'll keep doing all in my power to keep my family safe. Story 4. For my sister's wedding, my parents had me drop weight. However, they were unable to cope with my success following my metamorphosis. I was always an overweight kid growing up. In kindergarten, I've always been larger than most of the other kids. My size had already set me apart from my contemporaries, who were still discovering what made them unique. The weight I carried became more apparent as I got older. I was unquestionably overweight by high school, and my size and form were constant reminders of my peculiarities. It was not much different in college. I remained trapped in the same identity, overweight and sometimes struggling with it, while others of my peers started to discover who they were or explore new facets of themselves. Being the older sibling wasn't simple. People who didn't know me or cared to understand me constantly made fun of me, and said hurtful things to me. I experienced more bullying as a child than I would like to admit. My classmates cruelly made fun of me. Their taunts erode me, causing deep uncertainty and self-doubt that seemed insurmountable. They would constantly make fun of me, call me derogatory names, and make harsh jokes. As though I were somehow undeserving of love or friendship, I was constantly singled out. I was getting left out of games, parties, and get-togethers. From a distance I couldn't reach, I felt like I was constantly on the outside, watching everyone else experience the normal highs and lows of youth and adolescence. Bullying during these years affected my self-perception and how I reacted to the outside world. I felt uncomfortable with other people, so I turned to literature for solace. I buried myself in books and tales that allowed me to forget about my everyday problems. I was not judged by books. They didn't make fun of me. I didn't particularly enjoy being known as the geek. I was quite different from my younger sister, Vani. She was just a year younger than me, and she had a natural charm that attracted everyone to her. I was quiet and timid, while Bonnie flourished in social settings. Her personality was intriguing. She had the ability to instantaneously make everyone in a room smile, laugh, and be completely enthralled with her. It wasn't easy for Bonnie to establish friends. As though she were the sun that everyone drew to, she seemed to have an innate power to influence others to support her. I loved her regardless of our differences. I was very protective of her whenever she needed it, and I took my role as her elder sister very seriously. I was thrilled when she started going to the same high school as me. At first, I felt pleased to be Bonnie's elder sister, as though I had a special place in her life. But as she got older, things started to change. Bonnie started to develop her own identity as she adapted to high school. I saw a change in her opinion of me. She started to realize that we were treated differently, and that we were different. On the other hand, I was the quiet, bookish kind. She was lively and well-liked, quickly making a name for herself among the trendy group. I watched as she started to notice my quirks and fears that had before made me seem unhip. As Bonnie made new friends, she started to separate herself from me. After that, she would make an effort to avoid or deliberately ignore me at school. That was painful. I was very offended that my own sibling thought less of me. I tried, however, to respect her choice and give her the space she seemed to need. Even though it was painful to consider that I was losing a friend in addition to my sister. But over time, Bonnie stopped ignoring me and started hanging around with people that made me feel excluded. Bonnie and her friends would use any chance to make fun of me. Every time we got together for lunch or in the hallways, to get everyone to laugh, they would make fun of me in front of the other students or, worse, try to trip me as I walked by with my lunch tray. It seemed as though I was losing her to the same bullying and cruel behavior I had endured for so long, rather than to strangers. I was always alert, trying to shield myself from the humiliation my own sister imposed, as well as the condemnation of my peers. The fact that it came from someone I had always respected and looked up to made it more painful. At home, Bonnie's pals would band together against me whenever she invited them around. Without knocking, they would dash into my room, then laugh and point at my body. They would call me names like fatty and geek as if I didn't exist. It was as though I were their amusement, and I felt like a zoo animal. I felt little and alone, like an alien in my own house, as they walked into my personal space in my room. I made many attempts to explain it to my parents in the hopes that they would understand how difficult it was for me to cope with Bonnie's behavior. However, each time I raised it, they brushed it off. They would explain her behavior with a smile, saying that this is how siblings bond, that I was being played with by Bonnie. They assured me it was innocuous and even advised me to relax and not take the taunts from everyone so personally. They advised me to be more robust and patient because I was older. I so endured years of bullying from my friends, including my own sister, in addition to my parents' constant rejection of my worries. I felt alone since it seemed like no one in my own family knew or could relate to how much it hurt. I only ever felt like our parents were paying attention to me when I got my grades. In some respects, I had become accustomed to getting good scores since academics had always come naturally to me. I felt better than everyone else in that one place. Additionally, that was the only way I could honor my parents, the one aspect of my life that seemed to truly matter to them. As if my grades demonstrated their parenting skills. My parents took pleasure in boasting to friends and family about my achievements and presenting me as the family scholar. Bonnie, however, hated the comparisons. She wasn't an overachiever in school. She didn't want to be either. However, she became bitter when our parents spoke up my successes again. They used my grades as an example, so she had to follow suit. She probably did what she did to me because I could always sense. She was upset and furious. Occasionally, Bonnie would try to undo all of my hard work as a kind of revenge. Usually right before a big assignment was due, she would sneak into my room in the middle of the night and take my schoolwork. My flawlessly finished work would be taken when I woke up the next morning. When panic struck, I would frantically go through my files, documents, and books, growing more nervous by the minute. She would be grinning as she watched me from the doorway, savoring every second of my nervousness. The small win served as a reminder that I wasn't unbeatable and a means of bringing me down to earth. She recognized the significance of my academics, how much I had staked my self-esteem on them, and she liked to mess with that part of my life. It wasn't until years later that she confessed to taking my homework while intoxicated. Bonnie and I are still not close, but our relationship has gotten softer with time. You might argue that some of the hostility from our childhood has subsided as we've grown up, but we didn't truly develop the deep bond that siblings frequently experience. I didn't spend as much time with my family after graduation since I moved away and started a new life in a different place with fresh opportunities and an intriguing career. Our only means of communication were sporadic messages or phone calls. I was really thrilled to see everyone when I planned a summer visit home last year. We hadn't spent much time together as a family, so I was eager to catch up and rekindle our relationship. But things did not go as to plan. Our family supper got off to a decent start. It felt like old times for a while, and everyone seemed happy to see me. But when Bonnie abruptly announced her engagement, it all changed. At first, we thought she was kidding, and none of us saw it coming. But it was clear at once that she was serious. She proudly extended her hand to show off a stunning ring, and I couldn't help but comment on how beautiful it was. I was very delighted for her. She was thrilled to have at last found someone she loved and who reciprocated her feelings. Almost as soon as the applause died down, Bonnie turned to me and asked what I had been up to lately. I told her about my life, my career, and how fulfilling it had been. She interrupted me before I could say anything further. "This is something I have to say," she began to grin. "Why are you still overweight, though?" I questioned whether your life is really so great. "By now, shouldn't you have lost weight?" Her comments were like a kick to the gut, bringing back old fears that I believed I had conquered. The room fell awkwardly quiet, and I could sense that everyone was watching me to see how I would react. My parents instantly jumped in to chastise me when I simply shrugged and attempted an uncomfortable giggle at her remark. They started talking about how they were worried about my continued obesity and single status. I would never become a parent. Hearing them speak in such a way made me feel very ashamed. My achievements. They didn't appear to care about the job I was proud of or the life I had built for myself in a different place. My parents and sister kept talking about me, so they were just worried about my weight and the fact that I didn't have a family of my own. Their remarks were more nuanced than I had anticipated. After years of self-discovery, I had gained self-assurance and independence. However, at such times, I felt like the apprehensive, uneasy teen I had always been worried about. The approval and acceptance of my family. After that, my parents praised Bonnie for getting engaged before me and said they were proud of her. I was the underdog, accomplished but not quite good enough in their eyes. What had started off as a joyful family gathering quickly devolved into a painful reminder of past wounds. I never felt more alienated as I did at that moment, Bonnie continued. She persisted in her insightful inquiries. "When will you tie the knot then? Do you even have a boyfriend, really?" By bringing up my dating life, she was openly making fun of me in front of everyone. My parents quickly hopped on the bandwagon, concurring with Bonnie that I needed to find a partner before it was too late. They emphasized how I, the elder one, was squandering my life at work while Bonnie, who was younger, was getting married before me. I tried to say I was happy with my life, the way things were, that I found fulfillment in my career and independence. I loved what I did, and my profession paid well. So why was having a kid or meeting a partner necessary for my happiness? I am happy with who I am. I told them, yet my words seemed to go unheard. My mother, in particular, seemed disdainful. She scowled at me and made fun of me. If you have no one to return home to, what good is it to earn all that money? She was unable to accept that happiness might be found outside of marriage and family. Seated there, I experienced the usual sense of being misinterpreted and having my life decisions ignored. They were supposed to know me the best since they were my family, but they seemed intent on defining happiness in a different way than I do. I had returned home looking for warmth and connection, but instead I received criticism and jeers. I expect you to at least have a +1 by the time my wedding rolls around, Bonnie said with a sly smile. She laughed and continued. While I'm getting married, I don't want people to believe my sister is an elderly, lonely woman. The remark hurt. I just told her I'd try and shook my head. That is when my parents spoke out once again in a straightforward manner. It will be over a year before Bonnie's wedding. You could at least attempt to reduce your weight and look better for her wedding, even if you are unable to locate a spouse. They said that it would be easier for me to find a mate if I lost weight. Bonnie wholeheartedly concurred with them. She said casually, as like she were giving me a favor. Yeah, I want you to lose a few pounds at least. I sat there feeling a pain I hadn't had in years, along with shock and embarrassment. How could my family members speak to me in such a manner? Did my weight really make me deserving of their derogatory remarks? Was being overweight a reason I wasn't supposed to feel anything? I was just like them, a regular person. Like everyone else, I operated. I never thought of my weight as a barrier. So why did they? I've even dated men who accepted me for who I was. However, Bonnie and my parents gave the impression that I was unable to find love or attract men because of my weight, which was untrue. I was stuck and couldn't think of the right words to defend myself and tell them how awful their opinions were. Their remarks brought back painful memories of high school, when I was a target because of my weight. I hated how casually my family raised my most private issues, without taking into account how they affected me. I sat there suppressing my grief and allowing the conversation to drift to anything else. I pushed myself to lose weight with a passion I was unaware I had when I got home from my vacation to see my family. It started out as a means of proving something to my family, but it eventually became extremely intimate. I hired a personal trainer, adhered to a strict diet, and joined a gym. Following her own journey from overweight to a healthy weight, my trainer has been a lifeline. She was able to guide me along a route that was specifically designed for me. She developed a regimen tailored to my objectives and supported me at every turn, encouraging me to be kind to myself when I made mistakes. Everything seemed to fit this time. I gradually began to lose weight, and as the pounds dropped, I felt lighter, not just in terms of body, but also in terms of mind. I started to feel and look different for the first time in my life. My self-confidence grew rapidly. Reducing weight has had a greater impact than I had previously thought. Today, people have a different perception of me. Strangers are more kind and polite. I'm treated with new respect by friends and coworkers. I can't help but feel like this is the first time I've ever been validated. I feel like I've suddenly gained more attention than I had previously. I had a new sense of style because of my new body. I completely revamped my closet, adding clothes I had never dreamed about donning. I even decided to have a complete hair makeover, trying a bold and fashionable look that I would have previously been too scared to attempt. I've never felt better, even if it might appear pricey. I don't recognize the person gazing back at me when I glance in the mirror. I feel as though I've met a previously unknown version of myself. In addition to losing weight, I'm happy of my progress, since it has given me more self-assurance and confidence. My family has asked me to travel down and join them for lunch next week to finish the arrangements for Bonnie's wedding, which is just 2 weeks away. I don't feel like going home, though. I don't want my relatives to make fun of me or make me feel little once more, especially now that, for the first time in a long time, I'm feeling good about myself. Because of the way Bonnie and my parents have treated me, I no longer want to attend her wedding. However, I'm aware that if I don't go, they'll be upset and give me a lengthy lecture about how family is family and that I have to be there for Bonnie's special day no matter how devastated I am. What would happen, Etta, if I didn't go to my sister's wedding? One update. Whoa. The response from everyone has amazed me. Some of your suggestions are really funny. Now that I've shed so much weight, I can't believe you're pushing me to come over and screw with my sister. My self-esteem suffered as a result of being an overweight child, especially in terms of how I saw myself. For a long time, I battled self-doubt, constantly thinking that I was inadequate or didn't compare to other people. However, reading every one of your answers has changed everything. You seem to have given me a whole new perspective on who I am, and I am at last beginning to feel more self-assured than I have ever been. I'm actually thinking of showing up to my family's lunch and startling them. They haven't seen me in a while, and they don't know how much weight I've lost because I don't use social media. It will be fascinating to see how they respond. Update Reddit to okay. This upgrade is not something you're ready for. It's going to get interesting, so grab some popcorn. I made the decision to travel down and have lunch with my family. In my opinion, they would be happy of my metamorphosis when they saw me, as I mentioned before. They were the ones who forced me into it, after all. First of all, they would undoubtedly be ecstatic to witness my progress and at last acknowledge the work one had put in. As I entered my parents' home, their mouths fell open. As though they couldn't believe I was the same person, they gazed at me in disbelief. They stumbled for a while, wondering whether it was me. I hugged them tightly. I was thrilled by their response. They kept praising my beauty, stating that I was stunning and that they couldn't believe it was me. But things were different when Bonnie arrived. As she had done so many times before, she ignored me at first, treating me as though I were invisible. She did a double take, though, as I got up to welcome her. Her eyes widened in shock. She laughed strangely, almost violently, then reached over and pressed her fingers against my tummy. She was wide-eyed, as though she was looking for evidence that I had indeed lost all that weight. My parents chuckled at her response and said that first, they were also incredulous. We started talking about my makeover as we sat down to eat. My parents and Bonnie were amazed with how different I looked and asked me a ton of questions about how I had done it. They sounded surprised, as though they had never thought I could glance in any other direction. Specifically, Bonnie said that she had never expected me to change so drastically after losing weight. Then she revealed this treasure. I didn't think you would look this good when I originally requested you to reduce weight. Under all that bulk, I had no idea you had those ankles and that jawline. I paused, trying to keep my composure, and gave her a grin before reminding her. I've always been lovely, Bonnie. My attributes were only improved by losing weight. On the other side, Bonnie argued that I was unique in another way. Then she had the guts to inquire, did you undergo any surgeries? Because you can't look this fantastic on your own. My blood was already beginning to boil. The arrogance to think I needed surgery to look good when I had put a lot of effort into becoming the person I am now. Wow, Bonnie, it's amazing that you think that little of me, I said, meeting her gaze straight. Just a lot of effort and self-love, no surgery. You might want to give it a try sometime. I didn't care that Bonnie's look shifted from astonishment to disapproval. My parents came in and tried to diffuse the situation in their own manner, but it felt great to finally say something and correct her before she could respond. My mother answered, "Don't be offended. It's the first time the three of us have ever seen you look like this. To be honest, you now appear even more stunning than Bonnie did. It is she who is getting married." Mom's comment made Bonnie look even more irate. I just ignored her and focused on eating, letting my sister see through her anger. My mother then joined in. I was thinking that you might want to return to your natural hair color. Your natural tint would make you appear even more attractive, in my opinion. You stand out too much with this blonde style. Perhaps you should simply return to your previous appearance. My father and Bonnie agreed with her right away. Bonnie has always been the family's blonde daughter, my dad agreed with my mother. And the brunt of it was you. Therefore, it would be wise for you to return to your natural hair color. You may appear more like yourself as a result. I was shocked to hear what they had to say. All of a sudden, I thought they were banding together to try to bring me down. In order to better complement my skin tone and appearance, my hairstylist recommended that I dye my hair blonde. There was nothing to do with trying to surpass or eclipse my sister. I understood Bonnie's jealousy of me. I couldn't understand why my parents were so upset with me, even if I now look good. even though they had originally wanted me to be more acceptable for their beloved daughter's upcoming wedding, it seemed as though they intended to change me back into who I was. They couldn't accept who I'd become, though, now that I had. They tried to discredit me rather than acknowledge my advancement. At last, I asked my parents, "What's wrong with you? Why am I unable to get blonde hair? Is that hue anything my sister owns?" I hesitated, irritated. "No, she doesn't. I may be either brunette or blonde. I have a choice. Why is it that important to you at all?" I didn't understand why they were so fixated on my being the person I used to be, as though my looks had to reflect that. My mother sneered at me and said that I was deliberately trying to ruin Bonnie's wedding by trying to make myself stand out. "With your weight loss, you're already going to stand out," Bonnie added. "So, is it truly necessary for you to bring my hair color to my father as you always do?" I agreed with their assertion that I was being unreasonable and that, as Bonnie's sister, I ought to be more understanding. I was shocked by what I heard. It has nothing to do with theft. It was about being able to do whatever brought me joy. However, they were all worried about how it might make Bonnie uncomfortable rather than endorsing it. "What do you know? I finished this," I whispered, my words coming out of my mouth nearly scorching. "You three can't even acknowledge that I've changed because you're so mired in your own negativity. In actuality, I've always been fantastic in my own unique form, but you didn't ever see it. Now, you still don't think it's good enough, even after I've dropped weight. Nothing I do is ever sufficient." I paused to think about what I had just said. They only stared at me, and it made no difference. I had had enough of holding back. "I believe it's time I offered you some uninvited advice because you all have so much to say about me. Like you enjoy giving me." The phrase swept through me like a torrent as I turned to face my mother first. "The slack skin around your lips and eyes bothers me so much, Mom. When you chuckle, they sag on one side. I'm unable to ignore how crooked your teeth are. And to be honest, I find it nasty." I simply waited for her to respond for a moment before turning to face my dad. "Dad?" I spoke in a firm tone. "You're bald. It's really not your place to comment on someone's hair or color. When you can't even maintain a full head of hair, how can you judge someone else's appearance?" His face was tensing up, but I wasn't done yet. At last, I turned to Bonnie, "And please don't belittle me ever again. Between us both, I've always been the sister with the superior appearance. But now that I've dropped so much weight, you appear to be much heavier than I am. Just take a peek at your plump arms." Bonnie's cheeks reddened with embarrassment and seemed on the verge of tears. Everyone was left in shock and amazement as I smirked as I went out after lowering my glass to my drink in one motion. Everything the first needed to say had been said. Even though I was shocked that I had said those things, I felt no regrets about them. They were deserving of their humiliation. Following years of criticism, I flew straight home after lunch. I had no intention of staying behind to go to Bonnie's wedding. My phone has been inundated with voicemails and texts from Bonnie and my parents ever since. For the way I talked to them and for just walking away, they have been calling me rude and derogatory names. Because it won't seem good to her in-laws if I don't. Mom even insists that I travel back down to attend Bonnie's wedding. The third update. Consequently, I was unable to attend Bonnie's wedding. I appreciate all of your recommendations. I chose to treat myself to an unplanned vacation at a 5-star resort rather than going back home to attend. To be honest, it was among my better decisions in a long time. I did whatever made me happy throughout the weekend. Just pure pleasure, without any drama or strain. In addition to binge watching my favorite series and treating myself to a spa day, I also went to several new locations in the city that I had been dying to explore. To prevent them from contacting me in the future, I have also blacklisted my family. I want to stay away from all of the drama and poison because I'm tired of being bullied by them. My main priority at the moment is taking care of myself. I appreciate you watching. Please click the notification bell if you haven't already in order to receive updates on additional startling real-life stories that are happening in your area.